You know, we've seen your members of your organization visit this particular site now to take samples.
Yeah.
Do you do that for almost every site of a building collapse?
Every collapse. And I can say also that, for example, there are 4 suppliers that supplied reinforcement bars to the last collapse. But because government is involved in investigation, I'm not able to say today, but I can say for sure it's not material. It's not a bar.
Maybe you should respond to this question. I think he says, has anyone thought about the blocks used in buildings? Lagos block makers are notorious for making 40 blocks from a bag of cement. What is the standard?
You know, there's a standard, NIS 587 of 2007. There are 2 types of blocks, load-bearing, non-load-bearing. The load-bearing block, you take 1 portion of cement to 6 portions of sand. And if you do 9-inch block, it won't give you more than 22 blocks.
From a bag?
From a bag, yeah. But I have been involved, you know, I go to a block place and I spend 1 hour and you see them producing 45 blocks from. So our national survey, and I'm a statistics person, less than 5% of blocks in Nigeria meet standard. That's scaring true. And that's why we're doing what we're doing today. We're doing workshops we've done in Abuja, we've done twice in Lagos, and now we want to certify them because we now insist, because of these queries on material, we want to certify the whole process of the supply chain for material, from the manufacturer to the agents. And so if you make a block and it's certified, you put your code on it, because we need to also know who is doing what in the system. If you don't do that, you're wasting our time.
I think that's for those who have who are in the business of block making.
Yeah.
For those who actually would want to do it on their site, it becomes very, very difficult. That is why your members of staff, as well as maybe those of the structural engineering body and even agencies, should also visit such sites.
We have started doing that. That's also what I announced to them.
And sorry, I also recall the last time, there was a time you also spoke about the laboratories, the testing labs. Do we still have them in place?
Plenty. But we don't have enough. What we're also trying to do now is we've bought about 30 testing machines for cement, and for blocks. And we're distributing them all over the country with some helices so that people can go to sites where people are making blocks. If they find them not, you know, we have to also take a pragmatic approach. We don't want to stop them from doing their business, but we want them to do the right things. But one thing also, if you go to the market and you find block for 150 naira, you don't need any tests. That block is substandard and shouldn't be used. There is no standard block that should cost less than 200 naira. So those are also some of the things we're doing. And we're working with the National Association of Block Molders. And we're all going around the whole place and training them. But it's tough in Nigeria. People you turn your back, they do something else. And they tell you, you know, openly at the last workshop, they say, okay, we want to do the right thing, but we won't be able to sell our blocks. So you have to help us to make sure we sell. Otherwise, those who are doing the wrong things will be selling. Because the contractor wants to buy the cheaper block, which is true anyway.
So how would you deal with that?
We have to visit the sites. But you know, there are only 1,400 people in SON. So how many sites can we go to? We only choose. But let me also tell you something about statistics and buildings. How many government buildings have come down? How many buildings have come down in Lekki, VI, Ikoyi, or Maitama, or Asokoro? How many?
What does that mean?
The buildings that are coming down are those mass housing schemes. You know, somebody wants to rent houses to the low and, you know, and the downtrodden. So he concocts things and the thing comes down. And then in churches, because sometimes they don't follow standards. You know, this man contributes 20 blocks, this one brings, and anyone you bring, they put. That's a problem. And the point is that the only way to solve this, the government must take a very different approach. Regulation must be more aggressive. You don't look at all the politics around. You just take action, make the rules, take action, and deal with people. If your house comes down, you lose the place, and you go to jail. It will stop. The fact is, people are not being punished. And I think that's what the bane of this society.
You know, monitoring is very key here, and with the number of experts we have is another problem. But again, if you look at it, it goes beyond what we're saying, because it's about life. And if someone should put some form of value on such, then you should know what to do. What can people also do to help such agencies? For instance, you have a building, or you suspect a building in any place whatsoever. Perhaps you should be able to call some of these people and see if action can be taken.
You know, one of the things I discussed with one of the state governments in my recent trip is every time you approve a building for construction, you must also have had an accredited list of builders. You don't approve and give it to some charlatan to go and build, because even with the best drawing, they will bring the building down. So the states should certify builders, competent builders who have had a track record. But I'm also not saying that bricklayers and others should be thrown away. No, the bricklayers should be certified. We have government agencies, SON, ITF and others. We will take them through a process, certify them, and monitor them. And, you know, why do you think Nigerians are going to neighboring countries to bring those kind of people to work for us? Because they're certified. But the system here is an informal process of you learn a trade and you go out. I recall a friend of mine was building a house recently in Okota. And there are these concrete casters. You know, women and men, very energetic people, they can cast within 1 hour. And the guy brought the drawing to the leader. I said, oh, God, throw this in a way. I don't do this work for 30 years. The guy said, no, that I want you to go do it according to. They never used it. Because he says they've got the experience. And don't worry, all these Igbo people, they draw. No, you know, they work. So that's the problem. And at this last meeting, we brought those concrete casters. And we also demonstrated casting at the venue. You know, the formula, because if engineer says 124, for God's sake, let it be 124. Don't make it 128 because you want to steal 5 bags of cement, which turns out to kill 5 or 6 more people. I think those are the issues.
So for
monitoring.
cement, they have expiry dates.
Yes, no cement. By October 1, every cement in the market must carry all those labels I gave.
But usually, what's the lifespan?
Usually, internationally, cement has a lifespan of 1 year. But it says, a caveat, stored under airtight, cool, dry place. Is the Nigerian cement airtight? That's the one. So because it's not airtight, we made allowance for those. So it's 6 months, nobody is arguing, but you must put it on that back. There was a collapse in Lekki of a telecom tower. It was cast. It didn't bind after 3 days, and it came down. Of course, it was supplied by a Nigerian-made cement. Nobody's come to say, but people can talk about Cocoa House, that they built it with 32.5, which is a big or huge lie. Before 2000, Nigeria had a cement industry that was only 42.5 and more. It was after 2003 that when we adopted an European standard that we started having 32, and everybody started making 32.5. Is there any special technology moving from 32.5 to 42.5? Nothing. You just reduce the quantity of limestone and grind the clinker a bit more. Simple, no rocket science. You can do it in 1 day. My concern is, why are people going to court? And why are people resisting? Because they want to make more money. It's as simple as that. I think the point is, and I know there are cases in court, but I have a job to do. And I keep saying it, I just said here, more buildings will come down. But we need to begin today to stop more from coming down in the future.
And Demola says you also remind them that Nigerians don't go to state government for approval for building, because what the officials ask for is like half the cost of the building.
If people, and I listened to the structural engineer yesterday, if people don't go for approval, the state government, and Lagos State has the law already, they must bring down those buildings and withdraw the certificate of occupancy. That's, you know, if you don't use that method, people will continue to kill others.
But in addition to that, they also need to, because I think someone spoke about it here, how those, the Omoniles, when they come in and stop processes at the point of casting. So all of those, they also have to work out how they need to stop those.
Let's not blame Omonile on this.
No, it was the president of one of the engineers that spoke about it, that in the middle of that, if you suspend that casting,
you make sure you sort out your community before you go and cast.
So that hasn't come up as an issue?
No, it's not an issue at all. The Omonile comes because he knows he's holding you by the jugular at that time and you must respond. Respond before you get to that point. It's not a big deal.
Okay, then.
The professionals must come together, the state governments must be more proactive, the monitoring must be more, and enforcement must not look at anybody's face. That's the only way. Otherwise, we'll just keep wasting our time.
All right, thank you for coming in. Mr. Joseph Odumodu is the Director General of the Standards Organization of Nigeria. Well, that's where we draw the curtain today on the program. We thank you all for watching. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
Well, thank you. I'm Maokwe Ogun.
Well, many thanks. I'm Sulaiman Alede.
Bye-bye.